Hello, Veronica. It's Mr. Shawn here again to read another story, another science story today. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're enjoying your time away from school if you're not back yet. And I hope you're getting these stories and you're enjoying them. So today's story is floating. It looks like there's a leaf and a twig that are floating on the water. Do you float when you're in the bathtub or in a pool? Sometimes it's hard to float, but should be able to. If you put a leaf in a bowl of water, the leaf floats. It sits on top of the water. Yep. See how it's on top there? If you put a twig in the water, it also floats. This is because the leaf and the twig are lighter than the water. Solids that are lighter than a liquid will float. Yep. And there's also some other properties that come into play with that too, which means different things. So maybe we'll learn about those too. If you put a rock in the same bowl of water, the rock sinks. Let's see, broop, falls to the bottom of the bowl. If you put a marble in the bowl of water, it also sinks. This is because the rock and the marble are heavier than the water. Solids that are heavier than a liquid will sink. Yep. And we will kind of sink too. Just depends on how you hold your body when you're trying to float. How does a ship float? It uses tanks filled with air. The air in the ship's tanks weigh less than the water, so the ship floats. Well, some ships or boats, like you see here on the lakes, don't have air tanks. They just are very wide, so that allows them to stay afloat. So there's more air in the boat itself, so it keeps it up. What makes a submarine sink? A submarine also has air tanks. When the submarines need to go underwater, air from the tanks is released. It makes the submarine heavier than the water, so it sinks. So, yeah, they actually let the air out, and usually they'll bring water into those tanks too to make it heavier. Whenever a solid is put in a liquid such as water, the solid pushes some liquid away. The water level rises. A light object weighs less than the water it pushes away, so the object floats. A heavy object weighs more than the water it pushes away, so the object sinks. Yep, so the sponge looks like a toy, probably a plastic car, maybe a bottle top, and a leaf all float because they're lighter than the water. Liquids can also float or sink. This is because some liquids are thicker than other liquids. Maple syrup is very thick. Oil is thinner than syrup. If you mix syrup, oil, and water together, the syrup would sink. The oil would float on top. The different layers. So this is the syrup, then the oil, and then the water. So the oil is heavier than water but lighter than the syrup. That's why the syrup is on the bottom. That's kind of interesting. It's something you could try at home, couldn't it? If you had some syrup or some oil. And sometimes if you just have a couple of drops of oil, well, it depends on the oil. They kind of make a drop and sometimes they'll float in the water. It just depends. It's pretty cool. Try it out. Scientists study whether objects float or sink to make better ships, planes, and medicines. Understanding the properties of matter, such as whether they sink or float, helps you learn about the world around you. What would you like to learn about thinking and floating? What do you think about that? What's he got here? What's he doing? You know what this thing is called? It's called a scale. So you might have a bathroom scale at home. When you step on it, it tells you how much you weigh. This is a scale to tell which is heavier and which is lighter. So you have a leaf on this side, probably a rock on that side. So this shows that the rock is heavier. All right, Veronica, that's our story today about floating. I hope you learned some new stuff. With that, until next time.